2, 1.
New York, NY. LaunchPod starts now.
Welcome to the New York LaunchPod, the New York Press Club award-winning podcast highlighting new startups, businesses, and openings in the New York City area. I'm your host and New York attorney, Hal Cooper-Smith, and in this episode, we're taking a deep dive into the skincare industry with Dr. Dennis Gross. He's a practicing dermatologist who developed a line of skincare products that are sold around the country. What makes his products different? Here's Dr. Dennis Gross.
But that's the point of difference. Every single product has something about it that's not been done before. That's my claim to fame.
In this episode, we discuss how these products are formulated from idea to development, the beauty industry, and of course, leave you with a few tips for better skincare this summer. So, let's go to the interview. Some people may already know who you are, and some may not, but for the people who don't know who you are, you're a dermatologist. You have a line of skincare products sold in retail outlets around the country. And overall, I think you're kind of a big deal.
Thanks. Tell my kids that.
Tell your kids. How did you get to be a big deal among everyone that isn't your kids?
Right. Purely organic, unintentional, and followed my absolute love of science. I was just, I'm fortunate to be one of these people who really loved science, was good at it, and I just had a knack for chemistry, biochemistry, and biology and science, and I created products. My whole thing started out as a skin cancer researcher. And I worked in a lab, and I did a lot of this high-tech biology, molecular biology at Sloan Kettering here in New York in skin cancer. And from there, I just decided that I wanted to go into medicine. And from there, I decided I wanted to go into dermatology. And then from there, I said, I looked at the boxes of these products. My wife is a really big user. And I said, I can do better. So I created a practice that's grown and a line of products that are doing quite well.
And why did you decide to go from a researcher to a practitioner?
Yeah. Because I saw the life of researchers. It was a real painstaking kind of process. I did a lot of soul searching. And the reality is that grant writing is challenging. It's publish or perish in that industry. And it's a very hard life, and there's a lot of uncertainty. And my background, there's a lot of uncertainty in my family history. My parents were immigrants, they were Holocaust survivors, and a lot of struggles. So it just didn't work for me to feel vulnerable, and that's sort of what it was. So I decided to become a doctor, and I didn't really intend to necessarily practice. I was thinking about working. I could work for a drug company, or I could teach, or I could do whatever I ended up doing. But it gave me a lot of options. But researching, federal grant money is very tight. It was getting tight back then in my day when I was considering it. And I just saw the lifestyle. It's a very stressful life being a researcher. And I just said, you know what, I'm gonna take a pass. And you can do things voluntarily. You can go back in time. You can go, and I can still do it. I can stop now and go back to it. But actually, frankly, I'm very excited that I can also help out in that industry. I've been managing to raise funds for research for some of the causes I support. Anyway, it just wasn't for me.
You decide to start a dermatology practice, and you see a market for a line of skincare products. You mentioned you could do better. Why did you think you could do better?
Well, it starts with the label. If you really know what what these ingredients do, and I'm talking about 20 years ago too. And back 20 years ago, there were basically two ingredients that were used for anti-aging to make the skin look younger, to firm it up, to make more collagen.
In the late 90s.
In the late 90s, it was glycolic acid, which you might have used. But at the time, it was the only game in town. And at the same time, there was a prescription called Renova, which was Johnson & Johnson, Ortho Johnson & Johnson product. And that was by prescription. And then again, there was the over-the-counter retail stuff. And the products that I looked at, I felt were more about marketing. They were more about fancy packages, colors that popped, and bottles that looked nice on your shelf, and were advertised by images that were appealing and had a psychological effect. But when it comes right down to it, if you looked at the label, which is what I did, and thought about the chemistry, I felt like, wow, there's not a whole lot of science here. And I felt, well, maybe I could do better, and I have my background in science and in chemistry and in skin biology. And so I started to create. And I actually started creating products for my patients. And my first product that I ever created was it's still a big product for me. It's called the Alpha Beta Peel. It's a 2-step peel on these pads that were an at-home, for the first time, an at-home treatment that mimicked what you would come to my office to do, which was, at the time, were chemical peels, which the key thing was that, they were harsh. And I'm all about I don't believe in anything being very harsh on the skin. I don't believe in injuring the skin for the sake of claiming it's going to come back better. So it was...
do people believe that?
There are lasers that do that. There are products that you can use that are quite harsh. And yes, it can actually... Sometimes, it does stimulate collagen, but that's because of an injury. Collagen are the fibers in skin that give skin its firmness, its resiliency, its density. And as we get older, we lose it, right? That's why we get lines and wrinkles and sagging and laxity. And sun damage does that too. And so it's all about collagen. It's all about recreating more collagen. So injury does that. Harsh products and harsh methods of treatment can do that. But you don't need that, So... I pioneered this category of products, this peel that was absolutely gentle and was still highly effective. And I had to really argue my case in front of the likes of the editors for these beauty magazines and gurus of the fashion industry that really felt like you have to do something harsh in order for something to work. And I proved it. And to this day, I'm recognized as the father of this entire sector of the cosmetic industry.
The big deal. I get it. So when you were developing this product, what were the processes? You had a background in research, but how do you even decide to come up with something different? I feel like that's just so fascinating, the whole research behind developing a product.
Right. So I'm asked that a lot. So basically the question is, so what is the essence of creativity? How do you explain an idea that you get that leads to something new and different and better and breakthrough? So I guess it really was. It was, first of all, with that peel, for example, there was a single 1-step peel that was out there. And that's what these guys would come to my office and try to sell me these little kits that you would be able to slap a label on, sell to your patients. And I just knew that it didn't work, and I proved it. It was harsh on the skin. At the same time, it didn't work, and that was a double whammy. It made no sense to me. So I figured out how to improve that, and that was taking something that was out there and reconfiguring it and just reformulating it into a way that did work. So that was fixing a flaw, But then there were other products I've since created that have been recognized and award-winning and are selling very much now, where there's so many different examples where the world just misses stuff, and you have to just see that. I can just give you a couple of examples. Where I created this product that is a self-tanning pad. It's called the Glow Pad. And the key thing there was people just hate the color of their skin when they put on these self tanners. It looks really dark, or it looks really fake, or it looks really streaky. And one of the most important things was to realize that any self tanner needs vitamin D in the formula, and no one had done that before. Vitamin D has been out there. It's been known that it's called a sun vitamin. It's activated by sun and on our skin. And it turns out that it helps to take the pigmentation that's already in our skin, and when you put it on as a topical, it causes your own pigmentation that's already formed in there in your skin that's there. Like when you notice maybe when you're out in the sun for like 15, 20 minutes or 30 minutes, not even a long time, at the end of the day, you look like you have a little bit of a glow, a little bit of a radiancy, but you weren't out in the sun long enough to really induce a tan. That's because our skin very smartly has some preformed pigment, melanin in our skin, that is released. And so vitamin D causes that release. Vitamin D basically cuts a deal with your skin. It says, you activate me, and I'm going to also make you look better, and I'm going to be healthy for you. So vitamin D in a self-tanning pad was all the difference in the world. So this is a very popular product now, and that was one of the key things. There was also some chemistry where I took the self-tanning ingredient, which it also contains, but made it go a little bit deeper. So it's not just sitting on the top of the skin. By making it go a little bit deeper, it gives a more uniform, natural color to the skin, so it's not so fake looking. So between that and the vitamin D, there's another example of some creative concepts that, it's just many of them.
So like any good entrepreneur, you're seeing gaps where you can fill in.
Right.
But take, for example, that vitamin D pad. There must have been so many iterations, aside from coming up from the concept of a vitamin D pad, coming up with various formulas, a whole process, testing, getting the right formula.
Right.
You're dealing with science here. Maybe you're baking a new concept, and obviously you want to get the right taste,
right,
to use an analogy. So how were you able to do that? What's that process like? How long does developing a product take?
Well, right now I have 3 labs that I work with. So I'm the brain, and they're hands, and then I come up with an idea. And I can just get on the phone and just say, all right, here's the list of ingredients, and these are the concentrations I'm thinking about. And we mix and match, and then we do some testing. I have focus groups, and we try it, and we tweak it. And then we have another iteration come of it, and we try that, and we get, we look at, I'm a big believer in testing products before we release them.
Much
more so. Testing not just for safety, but for efficacy and for consumer satisfaction. As a dermatologist, I can really see the difference, and I appreciate those subtleties. And so that's how you do it. Believe it or not, it's not that hard anymore for me. The idea from the time I have an idea to the time I can have a finished product, I can do it in 3 months.
So how many products do you have now?
I think we have about 40.
40?
Yeah.
And what do all those products do?
There's a range. I'll tell you, the one thing they all do is have a point of difference. To have something different about them that I think separates them and distinguishes them in terms of their activity from all the rest of the other similar products out there. So it's a cleanser, and then we have moisturizers, and we have multiple types of moisturizers. We have anti-aging products. I have acne products. These are all products that I use my dermatologic know-how to formulate, and have always found something that is different, that I think the world is missing. And so it's something as simple as a cleanser. There are 2 key different types of cleansers you need. There's people who need gentle because their skin is sensitive. Then you have the other end of the spectrum where people are oily, they have acne, they have large pores, their skin's on the greasy side, or the same person goes between the two depending on the season. So, for example, the cleanser that's more of an acne cleanser, no one ever really thought to put in exfoliating ingredients into the into a cleanser, right? And yet at the same time, those that have made the skin too dry. So there's a balance to be struck. There's moisturizers where you not only put ingredients in the skin that actually lubricate the skin and add more like oils or moisturizer, but you can also put ingredients that actually bring water out of the circulatory system and lock it into the skin. Or you can also add ingredients that draw water out of the air, that they're called humectants, to bring water in. So you end up making a moisturizer that's more complicated. I always say that these products look simple. There's a lot of engineering behind them, but that's the point of difference. Every single product has something about it that's not been done before. That's my claim to fame.
You have this range of products. They're great products. They're tested. You've done the research behind them. But that, to me, only seems like half the battle. The other half is getting them out there and getting them to the right people. You mentioned with your alpha beta peel, you needed to convince a whole audience that had never been exposed to non-harsh treatment,
Right.
saying, you know what, this is something that is the right way of doing things. How are you marketing your products to the right audience and getting past gatekeepers?
Right. Well, it's been growing, and this is a company now. We've been in business 20 years, and we're just really still growing in an accelerated way. And a lot has to do with word of mouth. That is still, to me, the most important way for a product to sell. Is that one person is so excited with the results, they tell someone else. Or one person looks so good that the person sitting next to them can't help but ask, "What's going on? What are you using?" And that's how we don't advertise. This is something that works by, we get press. Because the beauty editors, they see the difference and they are journalistically writing about us. And then there's people who just talk it up, and it's just word of mouth. So, and that's how it's grown. And now we're in Sephora here in the United States. We're in Nordstrom. We're in major spas, and we are now moving. We're selling in the United Kingdom, in the UK. We're selling in Australia, moving into Asia, and so it's now we're global. So it's just new markets is just how it works.
And you also have a range of products.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that not all the products are right for the right person.
Right.
How do you make sure that someone gets the right product? Because I feel like in addition to getting people aware of your brand, you need to make sure that the right product is in their hands. Otherwise, they won't be happy.
You're so right. And the answer to that is based on the fact that I'm a dermatologist at the same time as a chemist. So I can create a product that I'm a big believer in keeping the skin in balance, right? I don't like anybody getting too dry from an acne product or too greasy from a moisturizer or sunscreen that people just find white and paste and they hate it. So as a dermatologist, I know how to create something that really sits on the skin beautifully. And I also know about different skin types. And there are tricks to the trade where you can actually create a product for different skin types. So that's one answer. The second answer is that, frankly, I can create what's called delivery systems that are, it's not just the ingredients that's key. It's how the product actually gets the ingredient into the skin and interacts with the skin. And so that's the whole backstory to every product. And so I've mastered a lot of concepts in creating new ways to deliver products to make them work. And at the same time, I teach. We create products that are for different skin types. And if a person, my sales team and my educational division, when we talk to sales representatives or we talk to the audience, we are always telling them how to read their skin, what to look for, and then saying, well, if this is you, then you should use this one. If this, on the other hand, is more like what you're looking for, this is the product. And so we teach and we create products for different sectors of society. I know when I create a product, I'm treating what I call the bell-shaped curve of the population. I know I'm treating people who live in Florida all year round, and some people live in Minnesota, and different ages and different types. So all this stuff's going on in my mind as I add every single ingredient to a product. You
mentioned you're making products for the curve, but do you know the breakdown male-female of your products?
Mm-hmm. I think the industry in general heavily skews towards women, although that's definitely changing. I think that's at this point it's probably 65-35, 2/3 of women, and lots of women who are buying it. They're also buying it for the man in their life. But men are culturally coming around now too. It used to be that women had a big head start because they used to read Vogue and glamour magazines, and they had this whole culture where beauty was just part and parcel with what they talked about with each other and what they were into beauty parlors, and it was a whole unique kind of points of discussion. Men didn't have that, right? But now there are men's magazines, and it's also something that I think men are getting under a little more pressure in the workforce. They're and women too. Youth is still revered. And as you get more millennials out there and younger people need to look younger. They want to look younger, and they're concerned about their jobs, and they're concerned about not looking so much older than the people who work under them. So looking better, and the skin in general now has just risen to be really a high priority in men and women.
And taking care of yourself. Right. It's probably part of all a self-care regimen.
Right. The wellness movement, the whole well-being, watching what you eat and juicing and all the things that are now really popular in our culture, drinking water. I mean, it's unbelievable, really, if you think that it's the same category as looking good, as living well.
And I imagine that you're going to talk about your products, but aside from your product, what should people be doing with their skin that's advice that they should take moving forward?
Well, these are the tips and things I talk about on a regular basis. The first thing I think you need to know about, well, a couple things. You want to wear sunscreen, right? Sun is definitely the enemy of beauty, and it's certainly the enemy of health. Skin cancer is real. And so you got to wear a sunscreen. Now, about sunscreen, though, there's so many different types of sunscreens. So the key thing is shop for one that you love to use, right? If you don't love your sunscreen, you're never going to use it. So don't feel like, it's cumbersome or it's pain in the neck. So find one that works for you.
Doesn't matter if it's the spray or if it's cream or...
At the end of the day, first and foremost, use it.
Use it.
And everyone asks, well, how strong should it be? What's the SPF factor I'm looking for? I think the best way to go, I'd like an SPF 30 or higher, but pink is the new red. If you are actually looking like a sunscreen has failed to keep you from even getting pink at the end of the day, you need to go higher on your SPF. Don't even let yourself get that color. You got to protect your scalp, got to protect your ears, got to protect your kids. And you got to put it on before you go outside. It's the kind of thing where you don't want to wait till you're out at the beach, walking from the car to the beach, getting set up. Before you know it, you're outside for 30 plus minutes without any sun protection. You've already gotten too much sun, So put it on 15 minutes before you leave or after you brush your teeth, but not later in the day. And if you go in the water, reapply.
You mentioned that in your practice you've learned items about skincare that you apply to the products that you make. Mm-hmm. What are some of those things that you're learning constantly, aside from everyone needs to wear sunscreen?
We covered a couple of things. We were talking about peels, we talked about sunscreen, talked about some moisturizer concepts, self-tanning. I'll tell you some of the other things I have come to conclude. I look at people using products, and I see them back a year later, and I notice that even though the ingredient that they're using, yes, granted from another brand, which, I don't solicit my products, they sell themselves, and if I'm asked, I'll tell them, and everyone knows I have them. Anyway, I will notice that there's a failure to improve. So I always ask myself, well, what could be wrong with these products? So I see failures in my practice, and then I think, well, what could have we done to do better, or what could be going wrong with this one? So this is where you get into the nitty-gritty science, though, and I'll just give you a quick example because it's really simple to understand, but something that's not typically done anymore until I started raising the flag on it. So vitamin C is a fantastic ingredient for applying to the skin, right? It's actually highly effective to make the skin firmer and to build those fibers called collagen, okay? The thing is, and it's certainly way more important to apply it, in a percentage in a product on your skin than it is to take a 500 milligram pill. You won't ever get the same levels in your skin by taking a supplement as you will by putting it on your skin directly. So I'm only talking about topical application.
No matter how much orange juice you drink.
No question about it. No way. Because you drink 8 ounces of orange juice and it's got 100 milligrams of vitamin C. It gets diluted into your 6-liter bloodstream, it gets embedded into every organ in your body, all with the hopes of it landing in your skin of your face to make a difference there. It's pretty diluted at that point. So no, you got to put it on directly. But vitamin C, what happens if you ever have too much vitamin C, you notice your body excretes it, you pee it out, right? That's because it's water soluble. On Mother Earth, there's something either it's water or it's a lipid, it's an oil, okay? And the two don't mix. So vitamin C, because it's water soluble, only goes to the parts of the skin that are water soluble, because like dissolves like. Oil and classic salad dressing separates. The vinegar from the oil separate. You got to shake it to get them together because the oil and the water-like substance, namely vinegar, don't mix. So I realized that you have to make scientifically vitamin C penetrate into the lipid phases of the skin, which is the 50% of the organ. So I create molecules of vitamin C by taking pure vitamin C, and I add like a little tail to it, a piggyback onto it, another structure that makes it penetratable into the lipid parts of skin. And it was like, voila, this was a dramatic change. It was like lighting it up. That was a breakthrough for us, and it's now a huge category, and it's a distinction that we have. That's just something I saw in patients who were using vitamin C products that were not really helping them. They would still have the lines around their eyes, or the skin would start to sag even more after the year of time that I didn't see them, or the lines on the forehead got worse, on and on. So it was a learning, and that's sort of how it works. My practice, I learned from my patients too.
What is it like being a professional, a medical doctor, and also having a line of products? Mm-hmm. I imagine that it's probably a double-edged sword. Your name carries stature, and you can bring that to the products, but also has a way where you want to compete with big boys like Neutrogena that you don't want to dilute yourself in a certain sort of way.
Right. It's a really good question because I am not a salesperson, and that kind of solicitation and selling, it's just not me. And at the same time, now I'm very fortunate to have the recognition. I don't have to. A lot of people see me because, hey, you're the guy who I bought this product that works so well. I see you practice in New York. I'm going to come to you. This is happening now. At the same time, the products now have a reputation. They're sold in all the Sephoras, and they occupy like lots of shelf space. So people just who are interested in the sector, who are interested in beauty and health of the skin, know the name of the product line. They know my name. I carry that's how it's named. So I don't really need to do that. If I'm asked, I will certainly volunteer it. In certain cases, I definitely say, you know what, you have acne, you need to use an oil-free moisturizer. And people don't even know that. And you have to tell them, and if it doesn't say oil-free on the label, legally you can still put in oil by saying things like won't clog pores or dermatology tested or acne-prone skin. Only the words oil-free mean that the product has to have no oil in it. So I teach that. And at the same time, lots of acne products are very drying on the skin. And so I will sometimes say, and I have a product I really recommend for you. And I'll tell them why. If I know that there's something that I do that's different, that will really help them. So, but by the same token, it's not at all, you don't come to my office and get wheeled into a room where it's a hard sell and, trying to tell people you must buy this and, you're captive in this retail space. Hardly the case, not that way.
And one of the things we always talk about here is the benefits of having your business in New York. Mm-hmm. I imagine for you, if you weren't here, you would be in LA. But you are here. Yeah. You were able to grow a phenomenal business here in New York. How has that been for you?
Right, great. I'll tell you why. First and foremost is because it's multiracial. And it's the crossroads, and I love that. I see patients from all over the world. I get to know their skin types, get to know their issues. I just created some products that are going to be launched in Asia. Very different type of skin. Very different type. Also, a very culturally different set of values. Asian people really, they hold in high esteem very white skin, very pale skin. They don't, any discoloration is really, is like a blemish to them. I understand that. And so there are certain ingredients that I know I create products that will give them that aesthetic that they value. So seeing people of all denominations, there's all sorts of issues. So when I'm talking about creating products, I'm also not only creating products for different skin types, but I'm also creating products for different ethnicities. It's really important. I also think we have 4 seasons here. This is bona fide 4 seasons, not, LA, which is sun all the time and just, beautiful place. But it's not the kind of thing where you can actually see people like I do coming in off the street to my practice in a day like today, harsh weather conditions, and you learn from that too. So that's one thing. I also find it really creative. I just find, I'm a New Yorker, and there's something about the energy here, and it's just an intangible thing that it brings out the best in me. And I am a bona fide New York City addict. I'll never leave. I'll complain about things on a regular basis, and I'll leave for a week here and there, but I can't go anywhere else.
And so for people who may not have the benefit of seeing you or talking to you in a podcast form or not, how do people find out more about a product that would be a great fit for them?
Mm-hmm. Well, drdennisgrossskincare.com is a website that I teach. I have videos on a regular basis. I teach on my Instagram, Dr. Dennis Gross, and I write. And I've written for publications, and I wrote a book that's downloadable from my website for free called Your Future Face, where I talk about how to predict how a person can actually predict how their skin's going to age on their face. And basically I divide the face into 3 different parts: the upper area, the middle, and the lower. And all of those areas have a predictable course and we all have a vulnerability. Sometimes we resemble one parent or another. And if you look at the way a parent looked, and you can actually start to see the first signs of something on your face, that is very valuable information. And you can use that to start to treat it and not end up that way. So I'm answering the question, how do I get the word out? Teaching on my website, on my Instagram, through a book, podcasts, and I do quite a bit of interviews for the magazines and the .coms out there. And so I have a voice. And the truth is that I think that the journalists out there come to me from all over the world now because I tell the story that's real, and it's not just self-motivated, and I'm not just tooting my own horn or trying to sell a product. I'm talking science, which I use in my products, and I think they appreciate that.
Well, that is a wonderful note to wrap things up on. Dr. Dennis Gross, thank you for stepping onto the New York Launch Pod and sharing your time with us.
Thank you. Really great, Hal.
And if you want to learn more about the New York Launch Pod, you could visit us at nylaunchpod.com for transcripts of every episode, including this one. And if you are a super fan, Dr. Dennis Gross, are you a super fan?
I am a super fan.
If you're a super fan like Dr. Dennis Gross, you can leave a review on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. It does help people discover the show, and it is greatly appreciated.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the New York Launch Pod. For more information, please visit nylaunchpod.com.